أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين عما بعد. So welcome to another video on this article. The article is about Quranic contradictions, inconsistencies and errors. It's an article to be found on faithfreedom.org. The author is Syed Kamran Mirza, and we have come to the part. It talks about clotted blood. Is man created from clotted blood? So we're going to get an ayah from Quran in which the author finds some mistake. Quran Surah 23, ayah 14. Then fashioned we the drop a clot of congealed blood. Then fashioned we the clot a little lump. Fashioned we the little lump into bones. Then clothed the bones with flesh, and then produced it another creation. So blessed be Allah, the best of creators. And then another ayah from Quran, Surah 75, ayah 38. Then he becomes a clot. Then Allah shaped and fashioned. And Surah 96, verse 2, created man out of a mere clot of congealed blood. And the author states here that there are serious scientific problems here. And this sentence here shows me, and hopefully you too, that this Syed Kamran Mirza really has no idea what he's talking about, because first of all of science is full of mistakes. Show me just one book of science which doesn't have a revised edition. An edition means there was a mistake which we have corrected. How many edition are you reading from whatever science book you are reading? Show me one formula of 100 years ago that still stands today, with some exceptions here and there, of course. Science makes mistakes every day, all day. The phrase trial and error alone shows that one of the methods of scientists is that if you make many mistakes, after a while you will conclude something to be true. So science is not all about facts. It's all about investigating and making mistakes. So to state that there are scientific errors here really has no meaning at all, since science itself has no authority to state anything beyond its own field of trying and erroring. And in the end, today's truths of science are no more than relic formulas of the future, as we learn from the past. So this sentence really has no meaning at all. He probably is just trying to put a stand here against Islam by saying some meaningful sentences. Basically, this is just hypnosis or magic. He's trying to convince us with some statements here and there that he is basically some scientist who is talking the truth, and actually I can't find any proof that he brings here. Let's continue with his story. Blood clot cannot grow into anything, he says. This idea also came from the Greek. To state that this came from the Greek knows that you know something that other people don't know, and this is just your opinion. And saying here that Aristotle erroneously believed that humans are originated from the action of male semen upon, and comparing Islam and Quran to the Greeks really is a mistake here, because what you are trying to disprove here is Islam and Quran, and you are bringing here the Greeks, and by disproving the Greeks you are trying to, in relation to Quran, disprove Quran. But this is not the case. We haven't anything to do with the Greeks. So saying that someone is wrong to prove that another one is wrong is no argument. This has nothing to do with just real logical reasoning. I think this is some kind of fallacy. So again, I find this kind of speaking, kind of hypnosis or magic speaking, trying to convince us. Quran's assertion on clot alaqa is completely wrong about human development, since there is absolutely no stage during which the embryo consists of a clot. I find this highly unbelievable from a person who can't even write normal English. I myself am not an English native speaker, but I'm not stating anything such bizarre claims. The only situation, he continues, in which an embryo might appear like a clot is during a miscarriage, in which case the clotted blood that is seen to emerge is solidified and by definition no longer alive. This sentence really has no meaning at all for the topic. You are trying to prove that this is wrong, so what does this have to do with the topic? Therefore, if ever an embryo appeared to look like a clot, it would never develop any further into a human. This is your personal opinion, and just magical speaking. It would be a dead mass. Okay, nothing to do here. No, I don't see any logic here. Since Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had some 13 wives, it is entirely possible that he would be very familiar with miscarriages. This is your opinion. Again, it's not proof. Wouldn't hold even in your own courts. So erase this statement. Has nothing to do with proving your case. And modern science tells us that the formation of the human embryo is a seamless continuation from conception to birth. Hence, there are no hard and fast boundaries of stages as Quran describes. This is your opinion? Because when I see a stage and a scientist doesn't, then we have a difference of opinion on this case. I know of some professor of medicines, Professor Bukai, a Frenchman who I believe became Muslim. He described the stages of embryology and said that the Quranic descriptions were true. So who is now to be in the right and who is to be in the wrong? At least I can say I have a source here, Professor Bukai. You can find him on the internet. Quran describes 4 stages, which matches exactly with Galenic description of development of the human embryo. Again, disproving some Greek formula doesn't disprove Quran at all. Basically, what you're trying to do is disproving some formula on the left, bringing it in relation with a formula on the right, and by disproving the first, you can disprove the last. I find this a weak argument. The Greeks have nothing to do with Quran. And he goes on, creation of bones and clothing of bones with flesh. According to modern embryologists, including Professor Dr. Moore, the tissue from which bone originates, known as mesoderm, is the same tissue as that from which muscle develops. Thus, bone and muscles begin to develop simultaneously rather than sequentially, as the Quran is telling us. Well, you are giving me here 3 sentences without any proof. You are making claim that Professor Moore says the same thing as what you are saying, but this is no proof. This is just hearsay. If you have proof, then show us the proof. Give us a web link, give us a video, give us anything, something that Professor Moore said. And which Moore do you mean? Do you mean the Moore in UK or the US or in Bangladesh? I can't imagine that I can find the Professor Moore just by searching on the internet. Just give me his first name, where he studies at, and so on. So just giving me a name, Professor Moore, really is no evidence at all. Thus, bones and muscle begin to develop simultaneously rather than sequentially. We read this part. Moreover, most of the muscle tissue that we humans have is laid down before birth. I am no embryologist, so I can't say anything about this, but bones continue to develop and calcify. This is you're bringing medical facts, and it doesn't make your case at all. So when you're going to come to the point? So it would be more accurate if the Quran had said that muscles started to. This is just again your opinion on how you would like to write Quran, but you are not the author of Quran, so you can criticize the author of Quran just by saying I would have put it like this, because Quran is not a book of science. Quran is the word of Allah, a guidance for mankind, and it shows us the right path. Quran is not a book of medicine or physics or chemistry, but it does show some events of life, but completed their development earlier. The idea that bones are clothed with flesh is not only scientifically completely wrong, false. Bring us the proof. You haven't brought us any proof. You didn't give us a link to a book, the page number, a chapter, a video on the internet. You haven't given us a phone number of a professor we can call. You're just stating, you're just claiming something, and this is just your opinion. And it was copied from the ancient Greeks. Well, give us a link, show us something. Just saying this doesn't make it true. Who are you? Are you a professor in embryology? Are you a professor in physics? I really can't tell from all the topics you're bringing here. Also, the saying made into bones and clothed with bones with muscle came from the technique of making animal statue out of rock. This has nothing to do with the subject, making an animal statue out of rock and cement. I really can't tell where you found this. I'm going to show you dear people, a video I found on the internet. Maybe it can explain us something, and I advise you all to at least read a book on embryology and see whether it's true and not just hang on to this guy's opinion.
God is said to give a detailed description of how the human being is formed. It begins by saying, "We then placed him as a sperm drop in a place of settlement, firmly fixed. Then we made the drop into a alaqa." We will translate this word very soon. "And then we changed the alaqa into a lump. Then we made out of that lump into bones. And then we clothed the bones with flesh. Then we caused him to grow and come into being and attain the definitive human form." In the 21st century, we can now safely say that this verse is clearly describing the process of human development in correct chronological order. However, what we should be paying attention to in particular is the second stage, referring to the development of the embryo. The specific word used to describe the embryo in this verse is the word alaqa. The word alaqa, when translated into English, can mean three separate things. Firstly, a blood clot, or to be suspended, that is to be hanging or clinging to something, or thirdly and finally, a leech. Now, all three definitions don't come anywhere near what we perceive to be the human embryo. So, why are these words used, and what significance do they share with the human embryo? Can the embryo be described as a blood clot? Well, what do you think? In the third week of embryonic development, a tubular heart joins with the blood vessels to form a primordial cardiovascular system, and by the end of the third week, the blood is circulating and the heart begins to beat on day 21. The first thing that comes to mind in regards to being suspended or hanging is the umbilical cord. But we can't use that example because we are simply referring to step 2, before the baby has even formed. But we now know today that the umbilical cord is formed from the connecting stalk. And the connecting stalk is formed as soon as the embryo is formed. The embryo's connecting stalk has even been described by John Allen and Beverly Kramer as an object to suspend the developing embryo in the extra-embryonic column. So an embryo is suspended and does have a strong resemblance with the blood clot. What on earth would an embryo have to do with a leech? Figure A shows the structure of an embryo at 25 days. Figure B shows a leech. Now please note once again that the embryo in this stage is no greater than the size of a kernel of wheat. This is an X-ray of the embryo at 22 days. This is the internal structure of a leech. It's mind-blowing stuff, but you still haven't seen anything yet. This is the head of the embryo at 22 days. The detail you are seeing right now is absolutely impossible to be seen with the human eye and can only be seen with a microscope. This is the back end of a leech. There's no other words used to describe this other than mind-blowing. The pictures we have shown you are impossible to be seen with the human eye or even to be predicted by the human mind. Once again, the verses we have shown you were revealed over 1400 years ago to a man who couldn't read nor write. Are these the words of God?
Descriptions of the human embryo in the Quran cannot be based on scientific knowledge in the 7th century. The only reasonable conclusion is that these descriptions were revealed to Muhammad from God, from God, from God, from God, from God, from God.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I believe the author on the website faithfreedom.org, Sayyid Kamran Mirza, meant this Professor Keith Moore, and we see this Keith Moore stating something which is in contradiction of his theory, because Keith Moore here is actually saying that the only reasonable conclusion is that these descriptions were revealed to Muhammad from God. Let's listen again to what he has to say.
Scientific knowledge in the 7th century. The only reasonable conclusion is that these descriptions were revealed to Muhammad from God.
So I believe that not only have we disproved his scientific claim, we also see here that he's using Professor Moore, who is actually speaking in favor of Islam and not against Islam. So this Kamran Mirza Syed, I'm doubting his intentions. Is he a person who is really trying to discredit Quran just on accordance of his whims? Does he have such a fixated hate that he even has to lie about Professor Moore? I hope this has brought you to some thinking. Thank you for watching. Wassalamu ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.